evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing today? It is Sunday. It's 6 o'clock. It's the 12th of October. We're here once again. It's time to talk about something garden related. Hope you're well. Hope you have had a great week. Now, tonight, I wanted to talk about whether it is worth growing in raised beds or directly in the soil. And the kind of way we've asked this question is, what's the title? It's gone somewhere. To raise bed or not is the question I'm asking. To raise bed or not. But before we get into that, let's find out if we've got anybody in the audience. Adrian is there saying hello, Richard and all. Good evening to you. We have got Turbo Stream is there saying good evening, veg podcasters. Good evening to you. We've got Rob saying good evening, all. Good evening to you. Been a bit chilly here today. Well, I think so anyway, he goes on to say. We've got a Lottie Chef, aka Nathan, saying good evening, all. Good evening to you. Rob is there saying, where is everybody? I'm in the South Coast, Littlehampton, in case you didn't know. We've got Anna Jones, evening gardeners. What else have we got? Saying hi to Rob. Kate is there saying good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. We've got Digwell. Evening, everyone. And Mary. Good evening to Mary. What have we got? Gary is there saying good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. We've got Hargrave Gas. Evening, all. Hope you've had a great week. And same to you. Hope you've had a great week too. So if you are joining along, please do feel free to jump into the comments and add your own thoughts. We don't bite, honestly. We welcome all new comments. If you are watching, you've never watched before, we're a friendly group. We just try and open up the show to conversation. There's no right or wrong answers. Everyone is different. Ballycillian is there saying just got home. Evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Over on Instagram, Crab89 has joined as well. So let's get into it. Jenny says, can you see my comment? It's a different color, which is odd. I can't say I did see. No, I can't see your comment. I can't see anything from you. So that was the first one I've seen. I don't know what's gone on there. Yeah, so I was going to get into it. Let's get into it. To raise bed or not? First question I want to ask you. How many of you have raised beds or prefer raised beds over the standard soil, bare soil? That's the first question I'm going to ask. Raise your hands if you prefer raised beds. Turbo Stream says, I've had an interesting weekend, which included a visit to the police station as I've been bitten by a dog on the allotment and been assaulted by a plot owner. I was only out for a walk. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you are okay. The dog owner is in the wrong with that. I'm going to say that. Obviously, don't know the ins and outs, but I hope you are okay, Adrian. What else have we got? Anna, can I only see one comment, Jenny? Nicola has joined. Evening, Richard and all. Good evening to you. That sounds awful to Turbo. Indeed, it does. What else have we got? I can't wait. I'm going to get a new teleprompter soon once I save up enough money. I should make the screen a little bit better. Kate says, well, I love my raised beds. After I developed mobility problems, they have made it so much easier and less painful. Nicola's raised her hand as well. Ian has joined. Evening, Richard and all. Good evening, Ian. Ballycillian says, raised beds for me. So many advantages. Turbo Stream says, I previously just had open soil, but now I'm potting in beds. Jenny says, thanks, guys. It keeps saying internal error. Obviously, something going on with YouTube there or your signal. I don't know. I'm going to leave and come back in. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, Rob has put a thumbs up as well. And Kate says, oh my goodness, Adrian, hope you're okay. Sorry you've gone through that. Lots of comments coming in all the time. Digwell, if it's a different color, it means it hasn't been posted. I get a few every week on this show. I don't know what's going on. I don't see it. So there. Nicholas says, I prefer raised beds, not just for ease of use, but look and seem in my head, easier to manage. Nickel, of course, is on a soil that has a lot of arsenic in the soil. So in some ways, raised beds is the only option. Now, let me share my thoughts on this. When I took on my allotment, I went for raised beds. I built the sides out of wood. Originally, they were pallet wood. And it's pretty much what I've done in every single garden, coming to think of it, except for my every single garden since I've left my parents' home. When I was in my parents', it was very much just the bare soil, and we composted that. But I pretty much always had raised beds. Now, for me, raised beds are only like that high, 200 mil, 20 centimeters. So they're not deep beds. They're not huge beds. I went for that sort of size because it was just to more make it easier to manage. It was to have defined beds. Now I went for that. Obviously, I'm quite mobile. There are some people who have mobility issues, so having the extra height when they come up to sort of waist height is a necessity. Completely understand that. But I wanted defined beds because I wanted to differentiate between the grass and the beds. It just seemed easier for me to manage by having just wooden sides on these beds. And I still stand by that. I do still stand by that. I have thought about getting rid of the wooden sides beds because there's a lot of people saying, oh, it harbours slugs and snails, which could be true. There's also a lot of work in trying to add plenty of compost to the beds and things like that, all of which is valid points. But I come back to the fact that I like defined beds. I do like having defined beds. I like having grass paths because it gives me it gives me grass clippings for mulch or for compost. So I do like to have defined beds. Do they need to be raised? I guess, what is the definition of raised beds? Is it just a few centimeters off the ground, or is it much higher? That's going to be a question I'm going to ask to you. What do you consider to be raised beds? Let's have a look at what everybody is saying. Where were I've missed loads. I've missed loads. A lot of conversation going on there. Where were we? So Gary says, I have a mix of open soil, small ground level beds, and now some raised beds. I don't know which I prefer. All have their advantages and disadvantages. Good point. Good point. Digwell says, I think it's because two messages are trying to get posted at the same time. It's obviously same going on with Jenny there. Turbo Stream says, I was bitten by his dog, which wasn't under control as I walked past his plot. I now know about the 1991 Dangerous Dogs Acts, and now you can be assaulted verbally too. I'm fine, bar some lacerations. Yeah, we have rules in our allotment that if I take my dog there, they have to be on a lead at all times, which means tying them up. Not everybody sticks by that, but Roxy stays with me at all times. I very rarely take her down the allotment for that very reason, really. But that's not acceptable. That is not acceptable at all. And the sad thing is, the dog will probably end up being popped down, and it's not necessarily the dog's fault. This is a conversation I'm going to save. We won't get into that. Kate says, I use Birdie's raised bed. A lot of people like the Birdie's raised bed. I believe they're metal, aren't they? They seem to be very, very popular. Jenny says, hello, I'm back, Richard. Can you see this, guys? Can you see this? No, I can't see it at all. Not at all. Nicola says, your metal bed could be deeper, Richard. So, yes, I have 3 beds on my allotment and 2 compost bins that are made out of corrugated iron sheets. They were basically there to basically I just used them because I had the panels. We're not actually allowed raised beds or we have to get permission for raised beds of that level. So if I fill them all the way up to the top, I need to get permission. So that's one of the reasons. It was basically just to use up the metal that I built those beds. They could be deeper, but that's not what they're there for. That's not what they're there for, those metal beds. They're not to be, we will fill them up with compost, not right to the top, but that's not what they're there for. They're not to be a raised bed. Turbo Extreme says, to my leg, I'm fine. Richard and Kate are shaken, but fine. Good, good, good. What have we got? Nathan says, I've got open soil and raised beds. Which do you prefer? Which do you prefer? Digwell says he can't see it. Didn't bring that. I can't see it either. Was that? Anna Jones says, I have 2 large edged veggie beds, not raised beds, in my garden. Oh, yeah, so I can. There we go. What we got? What have we got? Gary says, glad you are okay. It's been dealt with by the police. One thing being bitten, but being verbally assaulted on top of it, rather than the owner taking responsibility, is something else. Absolutely. Absolutely. Dogs should be under control in public. Jenny says, I've raised beds and large pots to help with my mobility. I do grow some in the ground as I have some help, but I prefer raised beds. So that's one vote for, well, that could be a question we're asking in a minute, actually. Turbo Storm says, thanks, Gary. I was trying to get to the top of my anxiety around dogs too, which has taken a knock. Understand that. The allotment committee are a... Bellyson says, although I said raised beds, most of mine are ground level now, as the bark paths have been topped up every year. This is what I'm trying to define. What would you class as raised beds? What would you class as raised beds? As I said, mine are only 200 mil with the, well, even my metal ones are really, the compost is only 200 mil off the ground. They're not really raised beds. The allotment committee are taking legal action to try and get him removed from the allotment, but it's not straightforward. Absolutely. Me too. I've 8 of the birdies and 6 of the Vida XL ones. Talking about the raised beds there. There we go. Digwell says, a raised bed is anything above soil level with an edging. So this is actually kind of the point I was trying to get across. What is a raised bed? What is a raised bed? Anything above the soil with an edging. So you could have an edging that is only a centimetre tall, and you've got compost on top of it, raising it up above ground level. That would be a raised bed. But you could have a bed and mound that is 2 meters tall, but because it's a mound and there's no edging, there's no raised bed. It's not a raised bed, it's just a mound. Is this the definition we're going with? It makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. It's just trying to be clear for everybody. Gary says, my friend who had an allotment before me made raised beds out of turf for edges. Turf for edges. I can keep on top of the weeding, so ended up with raised grass plateau, changing to wood now. This is actually my my point as well, because I've got couch grass on my allotment, which is really, really nasty. I did try, when I took on the second plot, the second half, I did originally have that as an entire soil, no grass at all. It just didn't work. It was too hard to try and keep on top of the couch grass because it was such a big area. So I went back to having beds, having dedicated beds. And that's actually, for me, much easier. Again, I do like grass paths because I want the compost material. It's natural, it's simple, just takes a bit of work. Could there be better things we could use, such as wood chip? Absolutely. But I stick with grass paths because it suits everything that I do. Plus, it's free. Chili Kit says, hi everyone, sorry we're late. It's been a busy weekend in the Chili household. What have you been up to? What have you been up to? Nicholas says, my new beds are pallet collars that are lined with DPM and the wood is sitting on plastic bearers. I've also got some new metal beds bought from B&Q 2 years ago, need to be put together and filled. So this is the thing when it comes to raised beds. So do raised beds make gardening easier, or are they more expensive when you factor in all the compost? So if we take my metal raised beds down on the allotment, I worked out that each bed, to fill that right up to compost, well, right up to the top with compost, we're looking at £100 at least per bed. Too much money. That's just too much money, which is why they're not what I class as being filled with soil. They're just there. to add a bit of shelter to whatever is growing on the inside. It does make a big difference, I've noticed. One of them was a hugelkultur bed, but I'm not impressed with how the hugelkultur bed has worked. But we're slowly building up the soil with additions of compost and things like that as we go. But yeah, is raised beds worth the extra expense in your mind? Not just the expense of the soil or the compost as well. It's the expense of the whatever you make the edges out of. Metal seems to be very popular. I use wood mostly, and each bed can cost 20 quid a go at least. And they do eventually the wood does rot away, so we do have to replace it quite regularly as well. So which is another downside against having raised beds compared to straight on the earth, straight on the ground. For me, my only true raised bed would be my carrot parsnip beds, 3 foot high. Yeah, 3 foot high. That makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Nicholas has still got 2/3 of my bed to build. Coming up to winter, perfect time for infrastructure work. Turbo Stream says, I'm using old fence laths as a form to grow grass path. Laths as a form to grow glass paths. I may end up taking them away in the future when the grass grows. I wouldn't call my new beds raised. Well, we got a video on that coming up a little bit later on, actually. Chili says the allotment is mostly flat beds, but we do have 10 raised beds from pallet collars. So pallet collars, popular use for some cheap way to build some raised beds. I like grass paths too, says Gary. Yep, I'm with you on that. And Digwell says 50-50, pros and cons with raised beds. Depends on what you want, really, and your personal needs. This is one of the things that we're very good at discussing on this show, is that everybody's different and everybody has different needs. So there may be some that need paths, raised beds for different reasons. Nicholas says, I found wood chip on paths broken down too quickly and rotted the sides of my wooden planters. I found that as well. When I first took on my allotment, I did place a load of wood chip down, and I only really filled up one small area, and within next to no time, it had rotted away and the couch grass had grown through it. It looked like it did exist. So I don't bother with wood chip. I'm happy staying with grass. This is my personal opinion. Everyone's different. Gary says, I took a few wheelbarrows of compost and topsoil before giving up my plot for us in raised beds on the way of saving money, taking some of that topsoil and from the old allotment onto his newer one. I think it is whatever suits a person. I agree. I agree. It is whatever suits a person. This is what the point is. Digwell says hugelkultur still costs a lot to fill, just not in the first year. Yeah, I'm still unsure about hugelkultur. I haven't really seen any benefit, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it's doing what it was sold to me as. But time will tell. Time will tell. Chili Cake says, I've been at the community garden today. We built that from pallet collars because we need to build on top of existing lawn. The area is due to be redeveloped in a year, so can be moved. That's one advantage, isn't it? That is one advantage of having raised beds, easier to remove. Nicholas says, my new beds would chip at the bottom, old bedding material from original beds, mushroom compost and bag compost. Took lots of filling, but I was lucky with a material on the farm. Actually, that's one of the things I did want to say. When we have a large amount of raised beds to fill, one of the things I've done in the past is put like on the bottom a load of woody material, twigs, prunings, that sort of thing, and then added compost on top of that. And that does actually work quite well. One of the things that I'm a big fan of doing nowadays to try and start these raised beds off is using straw bale gardening. I know Digwell out there is a big fan of straw bale gardening, but as a way of filling up raised beds, straw bales, getting that rotting down. Within a couple of years, you got some lovely compost in those beds ready to go. So straw bale gardening is a good way to fill up, and it's cheap as well. Jenny says, is hugelkultur classed as a raised bed? If it's inside if it's got some edging, then I would say it is, yes. Digwell says, I removed all my wood beds, too many slugs in the crevices as they rotted. This is actually one of the things that has made me think about this question, because I do like wood. I work with wood a lot, but slugs and snails in the crevices can be a bit of a problem. And the wood does rot eventually, no matter what we try and do. We've just got to come up with ways of trying to stop it. What can we do? What can we do to stop it from rotting? Who knows? Who knows? Added to that, actually, what are your raised beds made from? Most of mine are from wood, but you might. I've got a couple that are made from metal. There's some that could be made from sleepers or something creative. Let me know. Rob says, I use pallet collars on my carrots and my parsnip bed are 4 high. Now, flat area. The only flat area I have is where I burn my rubbish. Fair enough, fair enough. Nicholas says, I'm potting in pavers free from marketplace. I have plenty of grass to cut elsewhere. As I said, everyone's different. Everyone's different. What works for me may not work for you. Digwell says, raised beds need more watering, for example. This is it. Raised beds do need more watering. They do tend to dry out much quicker. They also warm up. Do they warm up quicker, would you say? I would say they don't warm up quicker. They take a bit longer to warm up. But they're also, being higher, they can also be less sheltered and more prone to getting the wind blowing across them, which can damage the plants at the same time. So that's something to bear in mind with raised beds. Is it's about protecting the plants inside it, being higher up, stronger winds, etc., etc. Tabestrom says, I realized I was just weeding around my new bed, so decided to just grow grass. I had major problems with wood chip as it seemed to be a weed factory. Again, this is why I've gone for grass paths. This is why I like grass paths. It's worked well for me. Tabestrom, I like the idea of those metal beds that could double as a cold frame. Again, this is why one of the things I've learned with my corrugated iron beds is that it's much easier, for example, to pull over some netting to keep the butterflies off and the pigeons off, because the 4 sides are already there. Ballystillion says, I like individual raised beds as each bed can have soil prepared for different crops. Again, good point, good point. Rob says, I try to fill my raised beds with spent compost from my hanging baskets, peppers and tomatoes. Recycling. Again, something I like to do here at home. Whenever I empty a pot, let's say you've been sowing some seeds in a container, you prick out those seeds, those seedlings, and you've got that soil. You don't want to mix it for chance of contamination. I put all that compost into a bin, which is then poured onto some of my beds as a mulch to hold in some of that moisture and to make things last. A really good way of doing it. Really good way, I found. Recycles and reduces the cost implications. And it says, tall structure like beam poles are very prone to wind and usually better in the ground than raised beds. Again, another advantage of growing in the ground compared to raised beds as well. Wind, as you get higher up, the wind is going to be stronger. Jenny says, a herb wheel or swale is a good raised bed. Yeah, because you're working with the conditions of the plant. A herb wheel, if anybody doesn't know what a herb wheel is, basically like a snail going round and round, and the center is higher up and it comes down like a cone, and you basically plant your herbs in that wheel based on their requirements. It's a lot more technical than I've just explained it, but that's the basic principle. Anything on the northern side at the bottom is going to be damper, wetter. So you put your cooler, wetter loving herbs in the back there where they're going to get more moisture. Nicholas says, my wood chip was 3/4 rotting down, sat on the farm for 2 years plus. As I said, I'm a very lucky waste product from the tree surgeon. Yeah, we've got to collect all that waste product as much as we can, in my opinion. That wood chip is massively required, often not used. Digwell says, lovely compost the first year of my straw bale raised beds. There you go. This is my point. You use straw bales, you can build up your waste, your raised bed in next to no time. Rots down lovely. It's such a good way to garden. I'm a big fan of raised bed. Digwell says his beds are metal. I've been using lots and lots of hazel. Could I use them horizontally, perhaps with cardboard lining? I suppose you could. Digwell says, old railway sleepers in my back garden, my old koi pond slides. Talking about sleepers. Now, railway sleepers were very, very popular in the garden for a period. I guess you could say they still are because they're nice and thick. They're going to last a long time. They're very expensive, although when they first became popular, they were pretty cheap. The downside is that railway sleepers were originally treated with, I can't think what the chemical is called. It'll come to me at some point. It's like a paint that preserves the wood. But when that leaches into the soil, it can cause problems. So, like so many things, go natural and it will last for longer. Anna Jones says, I have bricks around my edged beds. Bricks, great use of making a raised bed. And Nicholas says, I'm putting a 3-inch hit and miss fence for privacy and wind protection for the veg garden. A 3-foot hit and miss fence. Yeah, that'll work. No good having raised beds if you garden by the moon, says Digwell. I've not really looked much into gardening by the moon, but it kind of makes sense. Good quality wood chip can be hard to find in some areas. It is sought after by biomass boilers users, etc. There is a website or an app called Chip Drop, I think it's called, where you can go on if you want some wood chip. You go on, you register, and they can get wood chip dropped off to your door for free from these sort of arborists. So if you are looking for some, that's the place to go. Creosote, that's what I was looking for. Creosote, yes. Mine impregnated with bitumen. I love a bit of creosote. Creosote or bitumen. There we go. We got that. I knew it was something along those lines. But it does make you think, doesn't it? Wood is my preferred thing to use. But I tend to leave mine untreated. Or if I'm going to treat it, it's with my linolene, U-stop rot, which is good stuff. Good stuff indeed. That really does help keep the rot at bay. But I don't want, again, I garden naturally. A snap gardening, as I call it, simple, natural, and productive. So I don't want anything leaching into the soil. The soil is something that we should be looking after a lot. Rob says, we used to get loads of good wood chips, but not anymore as it's all sold on now. So, yeah, I still think councils should be dropping all this wood chip and leaf litter to allotments as part of their routine, because at the end of the day, it does them a favour as well, in my opinion. So, has anyone here tried no-dig growing without raised beds? And how is that working for you? Or have you tried growing without any sides? Have you just done a mound on the earth? I've done it. I've tried doing it before, both here at home and on the allotment. It didn't work for me. The main reason it didn't work for me is because the mud on the shoes that I then would walk indoors and get told off by the wife a lot. So that's why I've gone for grass paths, just to keep my shoes a little bit cleaner. And also, when I have dedicated beds, I'm not wasting all that compost. It's all going into that growing area. So a big thing for me is not wasting. Nicholas says, my wood chip was from my own sycamores. Had to have 5 very large trees felled, £2,000 for the tree surgeon, but I have logs to burn. There you go. Andrew says, evening, Richard and everyone. Just back from chestnut picking, 10 kilos. Lovely, lovely. You're going to roast them on an open fire for Christmas. Digwell says, all we get now is the low quality twiggy softwood stuff. No good to burn because of the tars, etc. Turbo Stream says, I like the fact it's easy to weed a smaller area, especially if you do no dig. I was finding it hard work on the open ground, keeping the weeds out from between the plants. Again, that's my reason for having beds as well, for why I have beds, dedicated beds. I'm trying not to use the term raised bed, but they are raised beds. They are raised beds. But that's why, to concentrate on a smaller area at a time. Council said it, I think, these days. And Digwell says, yes, I have 16 no-dig beds. Do they not have any sides, though? Without raised beds? Without raised beds? Is that working for you? I did first year, and in some of the beds got too much grass growing in them. There we go. That is one of the risks. That is one of the risks. Idaho Gone Girl has joined. Hello, Richard and chatters. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream says, I've always been no dig. The paths were a weed magnet as it was good soil. Yeah. Yeah. This is the trouble. Again, this is why I have raised beds to ensure I have paths. Nicholas says, just need to go to the birds to put the birds to bed. Will keep you in my pocket, may lose you. Yeah, we're going to bed early these days, aren't they? Andrew says, roasted them now, Richard. There might be some left for Christmas. Lummy, yummy, yummy. I haven't had roast chestnuts for a long time. Well, since Christmas last year, actually. We're going to have to go get some for our stuffing. Digwell says, yes, I'll cancel sales of the wood chip to biomass, so you miss out on that. That's a shame. Andrew says, yeah, talking to others. 16 no-sided, no-dig bed. How does it work out for you, Digwell? How does it work out? I know we could, of course, go and watch your YouTube channel to find out, but that's not the point of this show. How does it work out for you? Now, my next question I want to ask you before we show one of the videos for today, if you were starting your allotment, your vegetable garden from scratch, which is actually something I want to talk about next week anyway, but would you build raised beds or stick with ground level gardening? Knowing what you know now, what would you do? Rob says, our council get a private company in to sort all the trees and take everything out away with them. Shame it wastes all that material. It works perfectly, says Digwell. It works perfectly. Well, there you go. You cannot argue with that much, can you? If it works. Excuse me. Perfectly. Excuse me, I slept really well last night. Digwell says, raised beds every time in answer to my question. Well, would you have sides on them? Would you have sides on them? Turbo Stream says, I also like the idea of easier rotation as I had plenty of space but was disorganized in my planting despite a master plan. Yeah, that's another reason I went for beds, is so that I could be organized with my planting despite having a plan. I just felt like grass was needed. Originally, my paths were only 30 centimeters wide when I first took on my allotment. But when I rebuilt the beds, I made them a little bit wider, went for about twice as wide, 60 centimeters, because they were just too narrow. Partly because I've got quite big feet, so it was a struggle to fit down there. But also, moving a wheelbarrow or a lawnmower down the bed was difficult. So I went for 60 centimeters for the beds, for the path. Sorry. Rob says, at the end of the day, I suppose raised beds, but would cost a fortune all at once. Yeah, yeah. Um, Anybody else got any thoughts on that? Anything they want to add to that? Gary says, I like beds for that reason. Special places for special crops, salads, silver skin, onions, celery, etc. So it's all about. So the impression I'm getting from what we seem to be discussing here today is that most of you are growing in raised beds of some description. There doesn't seem to be anybody who has, or very few who have ground level beds, which is interesting, I think, because most farmers are on ground level. I guess it would cost a fortune to build up raised beds for their crops, but it's interesting. Interesting example. Digrat says, no, I would not have sides on my no dig beds. They would be no dig beds, then just raised beds. Just raised beds with side. Yeah. So a bit like Charles Dowden, where he does no dig gardening, raised beds, or the compost is a mulch, but no sides. Gary says root crops and high crops can do better in the ground. Yeah. Again, we said earlier, the higher they are, the more likely they are to get blown in the wind. And then he says, my nets are too big for my raised beds, so I do brassicas in the ground too. Yep. Nicholas says, my knee raised beds could do with wider paths, but I wanted max growing space. That's exactly why when I originally did my allotment, I had narrow paths to maximize the amount of growing space that I had. It didn't work. It wasn't very productive in the sense that it made it difficult to work and therefore difficult to look after. And that's why I went to 60 centimeters. The wheelbarrow was the deciding factor, really. If I can get a wheelbarrow down my paths, that's the size they need to be. Now, should we have a look at this video that has been sent in from TurboStream? It seems like a good opportunity to see what's going on as we're talking about these raised beds.
So this week's subject is beds or borders. So on this square, I'm having a bit of a change around this year, or for next year I should say. This used to be one big square of open ground. As you watching my videos will know that this plot is divided into 4 squares. So I've got soft fruit in the back there. This was a square, and then to the left I've got some open ground which I've been growing in the last, well, 5 years since I've had the plot. Beautiful day today as well, by the way. I'm filming this on Monday. Yeah, but this year, so what I've decided to do is put these edges in and regrowing the grass. So you can just see the grass is starting to take. Put some grass seed down. There's a row of beetroot which I planted before I decided to change this. So there's about, you can just see this where the gap is. So I've put in these old fence posts just to grow the grass over the autumn. And the idea being that I can get a wheelbarrow down. So I'll put some grass seed down. It's coming out, I'm doing okay with that actually. I'm quite pleased with that. The sides are just made from small fence panels screwed together. I don't know if you can see. Just as more as a form really for the grass rather than a bed, and then I can either get some more wood or just go back to grass paths. I'm not quite sure. I haven't been able to do it all because I've got some Brussels sprouts there and some brassicas which are sown. So once those are harvested I can then put another bed in. Look at that white fly, can you see that? Absolutely white fly everywhere, white fly central. I've got some Brussels sprouts coming, so I'm pleased with that. Yeah, so I'm also extending this little path down here, although the grass is just starting to grow now. I bought some cheap grass seeds from B&Q. So we'll see how we get on. I was finding it a bit of a struggle the last couple of years, keeping the weeds down, so I'll give this a go. We'll see how we get on. So that's my mini plot tour of this 1/4 of the plot, just to see what you think about grass and side beds or open ground. I guess it's all the experiment, isn't it?
There we go. What a great looking plot and perfectly on target. That's kind of similar to my allotment with that sort of, I wouldn't call it, I struggle with calling them raised beds because to me, raised bed implies they're much higher, but for me, they're just off the ground. That gives them the chance to differentiate, or what I like to think of it as, between the soil and the growing space. Ideally, if it were, I mean, the couch grass I have on my allotment is bad, and I mean bad. Um, it's a nightmare to keep on top of, no matter what I try and do. Unless I dig it all out, that might be the only way, or use weed killer, which I don't want to use. So raised beds for me have worked out well. It's still get couch grass come through, but it's much easier for it to be removed. Idaho says, I've raised beds. Some are wood and some are from cinder block. And which do you prefer, raised beds, or do you prefer growing on the soil, ground level? Ballycillian says, farmers plough the fields and use chemicals, etc., to control weeds and pests. Not for me. Raised beds and organic growing. I'm with you there. I'm all with you there. Farmers are probably not the best example when comparing to us because they're more about, quite rightly, turning a profit, making a living, whereas we are doing our hobby as a way of life. I think is a way to differentiate it. Jenny says, I like with raised beds, you can micromanage the environment, sort out pH. You can make free draining or bog garden or completely different, growing environment for each one growing next door. Excuse me again. Absolutely. As I said, it's all about different soils and different ways of looking after your ground. Make the main thing that we want, really, isn't it? We want to be able to grow food. Idaho says raised beds are worth it for me. My native soil is mostly sand, so I have to add lots of compost. The sides help keep the compost stay in the growing area, plus I don't have to bend over so far. And actually, that does make it a very good point, talking about the sides keeping the soil in, because I have seen where we've laid compost on top of my soil down on the allotment. I've got quite a bit of a crosswind coming across on the allotment, and the soil does get, or the compost side does get blown away. It is known to happen. So that's a good reason for sides to hold in all that compost, stop it from being blown away. Again, managing that microclimate. Over on Instagram, Dahlia679 has joined, and Ian says, I made some raised beds for some clients with softwood railway sleepers 10 years ago, and they still look good as new. At home, I have made some with decking. I keep thinking about, if I was to remodel my garden, would I get railway sleepers? I probably would. Jenny says, great plot tour. Thank you. Indeed, we do like videos. We would love to get more videos from you guys. Show us what you're doing, what's going on in your allotment, or if you have a question. Turbo Stream says, it's more for organising my growing space and easier maintenance going forward. I guess time will tell. I can always remove a few grass sections if it doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, everything that we do can pretty much be undone to a certain extent. I'm saying to a certain extent because I'm sure there are some samples or examples where somebody's going to come out and tell me you don't want to do it because it will ruin the soil forever. One example, but I'm sure there's going to be somebody that can tell me that. Turbo Stream says, I intend to top up the beds with compost this winter. Yeah. Aren't we all? If we've got enough compost. Now, this feels, as we seem to be talking about allotments, a good opportunity to go to this week's mission. And, well, I'll explain. Our roving reporter, our outdoor reporter, will tell you what the mission is. Well, for this week's mission, you set me the mission to create a way of storing our bamboo sticks was the exact word. I don't use bamboo sticks, I use hazel. Outside easily, and this is what I've come up with. It's really quite simple. All I've simply got is alongside my shed, I pull in a couple of eyelets, just screwed in, nothing complicated about that, and then I put in a bungee cord between the two eyelets in which I slide behind the sticks. That holds them in place. It gives a bit of movement to it should the wind catch them as well, so they're not going to be ripped off. Stores them tidily out the way, and there's no reason that this cannot be repeatable. It's easy to get them out. It's just such an easy way of storing our bamboo sticks and canes. So that's what I've done. If you've got any other ideas on what to do, let us know in the comments. And with that, is it mission accomplished or mission failed? You decide. Back to the studio. Indeed, is that mission accomplished or mission failed? I think it's mission accomplished, but what do you guys think? And how do you store your bamboo canes, your pea sticks outside? Do you have something similar to what I've done, or do you have another option? I think when it comes to storage of bamboo canes and sticks and pea sticks, it's always a tricky one to get right, especially when you've got some really tall 8-foot bamboo canes, for example. I used to try and do them in pallets. Trying to keep them indoors would be ideal, but who really has the room inside a shed for a load of sticks? It can be tricky. So store them tidily away, somewhere out the way, something like that, for me works well. And that's what I came up with. But what do you do? Ballycillian says, I like that storage. It's simple, isn't it? It's simple and effective. Turbo Stream says, simple and effective, mission accomplished. You took the words right out of my mouth there. Yeah, it is completely simple, completely effective. You can do as many as you like, depending on how big or how many sticks you have, or how big a shed you have. And it's not very expensive. A couple of quid for the bungee cord, and the eyelets are pretty cheap as well. But yeah, like I said, what do you use? How do you store your bamboo canes? Some people put them on like hooks on the outside of their shed that just hang up there, which can work quite well as well. They built like a shelf system. Takes a bit longer to do. Turbo Stream says, I screwed a section of timber to my shed to make a slot to store canes. That's exactly what I was just talking about. It works. It works. That's all I can say, really. It works. I just thought my way was simple and something everybody could do. Doesn't take long to build either. Just drill 2 screws in, drill 2 eyelets in, and pop their bamboo cord. 5 minutes to build at the most. So no reason, in my eyes, that none of you who are struggling to store your bamboo canes, struggling to store your hazel sticks, can't go and do that. Unless, of course, you don't have a shed or anything to screw into. Or something like that. Turbo Stream says, if you use pallets, you can store canes in the upright box sections too. That's what I used to do as well. Yes, you can. You can use pallets in that same sort of way. Again, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. It works. Linus has joined, slotted into upright pallets, but I think your idea is better. Thank you very much. Yeah, I used to do the upright pallets as well. I did do the upright pallets as well, but I just felt this way was a little bit better, a little bit more simple, bit of flex in it so you can fit more in, and easier to get them out. But hey, whatever works. Pallets as compost bins. Yeah, I'm not a fan of using pallets as compost bins myself, but again, cheap, simple, effective, does the job. Mission accomplished, says Jenny. Thank you very much. I think that is mission accomplished. Don't forget, if you want to set me a mission, a challenge to do for next week, hashtag mission and your mission. I won't remember it, so you have to wait to the end when we do the draw to find out how if your choice is what we will do next week. And I think something like what we've done this week is exactly what I'm after, something that we could all do with learning something from, something we could all have a bit of fun with as well, something a bit challenging, although I'm busy next Saturday, so I haven't got a huge amount of time next week. Turbo Stream says, I've seen plot holders use gutters as cane storage, also large drain pipes. The list can go on and on. Yes, so I have seen the gutters as well. The trouble with gutters is they generally hold on to the water. So when you get sticks or bamboo canes in those gutters and it rains and that gutter has water in it, it will drain away, of course, but there's still going to be that sort of dampness around it. It can lead to the bamboo canes or the hazel sticks to rot and go very brittle. And then when you need to use them, they snap really, really easy. And that's something we really want to avoid, having things snap. We want things to last. My ultimate goal is that most of my things I want to last for several seasons. If they can't do that, they have to be biodegradable and rot down. Which does work with my bamboo sticks, actually. My hazel sticks, sorry. I have for those that don't know, I have a hazel tree growing on my allotment in the corner, which I coppice every year to get those hazel sticks from to grow my peas, my beans up. It works really well, really, really well. Yeah, I really like it. I really like it. Chili Cake says, Richard, I've finally managed to secure quince cuttings from a community garden. Also trying some elder. Yeah, I couldn't get any quince cuttings. I've looked everywhere to find a quince tree that I could get quince cuttings from. I couldn't get any, but let me know where yours is. I'll see if I can get some cuttings from it. With regards to elder, I'm getting rid of my elder trees. I've mostly got rid of the elder tree. I had an elder tree here in the garden at home, and I had one on the allotment. And I like elder. I really like elder. I particularly like elderflower cordial, which is a really tasty cordial drink. Taste of summer is the way I describe it. I make that every year, which is why I wanted an elder tree. But one, it's so easy to get hold of elder out in the wild that I didn't feel I needed it growing on an allotment or in my garden. But two, the trees itself became really twisted, really bit too big and ugly that I felt they had to go. But who knows? Who knows? If I get a large amount of land, I would probably look at growing elder again, because it's still quite a good tree. And I do like elderflower cordial, elderberries as well. Nicholas says, when I lived in Brighton, I used the undercarriage of my 1935 horse dray cart, pot on the frame, kept the canes dry. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. You know, you want to really keep your canes and stuff dry as much as you possibly can. Otherwise, they do go dry, they do go rotten and brittle. And then you stick them in the ground and guaranteed they will snap as you're sticking it into the ground. Nothing more annoying than that. Nothing more annoying, I have to say. But it happens. That is what we have to deal with. Black elder is pretty too, with pink flowers. I've never seen black elder, so I'll take your word on it. But yeah, I would love to have enough land to warrant having elder trees, but I think really I don't have it. Chili Cake says the reason is that church where the community garden is being demolished, and we wanted some cuttings for the history. Oh, that is a shame it's being demolished. That is a shame it is being demolished. Ian says, have you ever made sloe gin? I have a lot of sloes, so maybe next year it would be worth you having a go. I have made sloe gin before. Yeah, it was very popular when I made it. So I'm not, as you know, I don't drink. I don't like vodka. I don't like gin. And so I didn't really like sloe, or sloe gin, sorry. but I have made it. And basically what I did is I took a load of sloes, I stuck them in the freezer because then the juice came out, and then put them into a demijohn. And by putting them in the freezer, you got a bit more juice out of them. Put them into a demijohn with a load of sugar, covered them in gin, and you left them for a while for the juices, the flavors to develop. Strain it, and Bob's your uncle, off you go. Yeah, I mean, not much more I can say. Not much more I can say. Although, Ian, I've got to say, after being to your field and things else going on, I really want to get a field like what you have and start doing that sort of thing. You probably know what I'm talking about, what's kicked that off. Digger says, don't know why they call it sloe gin. It never lasts very long. No, it doesn't last very long. As I said, it was very popular. It was very popular, just not for me. Okay, thanks, Ian. Ian, if you want to make sloe gin, we could do it if they're still in season. We haven't had a frost yet, so if you want to make sloe gin this year, we probably could do that. Digwell says freezing the sloes breaks the skin. I use a needle. Yes, that's exactly why I freeze them, or I wait until we've had a first frost, and it just breaks the skin so the juice comes out a little bit more. You could just prick the skin with a needle, but that's too much work in my eyes. Nicholas says, I have trouble. I drink alcohol. I like juniper. I have trouble. Drink alcohol. I like juniper essential oil in tonic. Tastes like GMT to me. I can't stand juniper anymore. Can't stand juniper. It grows wild up on the South Downs here. I can't stand it. Cannot stand it. But hey, as I said, everyone's different. Slow Bacardi is very nice, says Digwell. And Digwell, the frost is needed as the slows are no good before it. Yeah. Yeah, you really do need that first frost to come in, which is getting later and later. I was reading, actually. I know we've spoken a lot about the weather on this show this year, what with it being so dry and how we've been wishing we would have some rain. But this year, I was reading that still one of our local reservoirs is only a third full compared to what it should be because of a lack of rainfall. It's worrying times. Worrying indeed. And it does feel like this year the weather is still pretty good. It's not that cold, is it? It still feels rather warm. Mornings are chilly, but not cold. Freezing helps kill the bugs and bacteria too with sloes. Freezing doesn't kill bacteria, it just slows it down. But it could kill the bugs. But again, you really want to wash your sloes before you put them in the freezer anyway, before you do anything with them. Ian says, I think it's got a lot of people. Had I known you were afterland, I would have let you know. We could give the sloes a go. Yeah, I can't. I'm afterland, just probably not at the right price, but yeah. Yeah, we could give the sloes a go. We can certainly give the sloes a go if you want to make sloe gin. Lynn says fermented sloe olives are very nice if avoiding alcoholic options. Fermented sloe olives, how do you do that? How do you do that? That sounds very, very interesting. What's that beeping noise? Nicola says we had rain in Cornwall. Lucky you, lucky you. We had a slight frost last week. No frost here. And super happy alien. I still get new flowers on my peppers. Yeah, my chilies and my peppers are still flowering. New flowers. My apples as well. My apple trees. I've noticed some of those have put on a second flush of flowers, which isn't unusual, but eye-opening at the same time. This year is just balmy. Just balmy. Just balmy. Nicholas says it's chilly putting the birds to bed. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Okay, I think it is time for this week's. Oh, I'm sorry. And hello from Sultan's Allotment in Fareham. Oh, just down the road from me. Hello to Sultan's Allotment and everyone there. Right, it is time for this week's cook along. And this week, he wanted me to cook piccalilli, or as my dad would call it, piccalilli. So let's hit it. Well, it's time for this week's cook along, this week's recipe, and this week you wanted me to cook up a piccalilli, which is a fantastic condiment, I've got to say. So let's get making it. So I started prepping the vegetables, just roughly chopping them because we're going to make this easier. I've got a small cauliflower, which I'm going to throw into our kitchen ninja, along with some shallots, and I've done a mix of shallots and onions actually, just because I was feeling a little bit fancy. And I've also got some green beans, which are all going in here, and a courgette, all of which are going into this food processor. If we can fit it all in, we may have to do this in 2 batches, but never mind. But all we want to do is get these chopped. So this is what we've got at the end, nicely chopped up, quite small. I will admit, I do like my piccalilli to be quite small chunks, but it's a mix of green beans, courgette, cauliflower and onions. What we're going to do now is add a couple of tablespoons of sea salt, and what that's going to do is just draw out any moisture. So I like to give it a bit of a stir as well. We're going to have to leave this for a couple of hours while it draws out the moisture, and then we're going to give it a good wash to remove any salt afterwards. But it's well worth just giving it a good stir. So it's been nearly 4 hours, and as you can see, this liquid down the bottom here is everything that the salt has drawn out, all that moisture the salt has drawn out. Now this is actually quite a important step, because what we're going to do, drain it, wash it thoroughly. Well, first time I ever made piccalilli, I didn't wash it thoroughly enough. I didn't get rid of the salt, and it was far too salty. So very important step. So I'm going to give that a good drain and then just leave it and washed and drain. So now we need to start making the sauce, and I've got 100 mils of a malt vinegar here, into which we are going to add, let's do this in the correct order, 3 tablespoons of mustard powder, a tablespoon of coriander seeds, 2 tablespoons of mustard seeds, a tablespoon of cumin, what else have we got, a couple of teaspoons of turmeric, make sure that all goes in, and 4 tablespoons of flour. And then what we're going to do, I'll just grab a spoon because I wasn't prepared, is just mix that to make a really nice paste. This is the basis of the sauce, if you like. I think that's quite mixed up quite well now. If you look at that, mixed up quite well. So we now need to make the next side of things. Okay, now it's time for the next part. So I've got 500 ml of this malt vinegar. I'm going to add 200 grams of caster sugar. And we've just got it on a gentle heat. We just want all that sugar to dissolve into the vinegar. I'm going to stir it at the same time just to move things along. See, it's nearly all dissolved into there. Nearly there now. There we go, that's all dissolved in. So now we're going to take all that lovely vinegar, herb, spice mix that we made just now in the previous step and add that in. And again, I will be stirring this as well to try and get the tea to sort of melt into each other. Might have to turn the heat up a bit for this. I tell you, the smells coming off this is absolutely amazing. Okay, so this sauce is nice and thick now, which tells me it's done. We've just simmered it for a few minutes so we're getting a bit of froth, but now we're just going to add in all the vegetables and give it a good mix. Then we'll give it a minute to cook. Not long, because the vegetables aren't going to need much. They're pretty much raw vegetables in this mix. And then we'll pot it into some jars, which will be the final step. These jars have been in the oven while this has been simmering, so they should be nicely sterilised. And then we'll take a head back into the potting shed and we will see just what this tastes like. As you can see, that's came together really, really nicely. Oh no, you want me on full screen, don't you? Like that. There we go. There we go. That is the small jar of piccalilli that we have made. Now the big question that you're all asking, isn't it? How does it taste? So good. So good. Oh, that is really nice. Really sort of nice bit of flavour coming through. Nice crunch with the vegetables. Nicely crunchy. There's a slight aftertaste of something, and I can't quite figure out what that is. That's the only downside. So because of that, that's going to be 8.5 out of 10. But really, really nice. Really nice. Digwat says, be careful picking the sloes as the blackthorns are sharp and can harbour bacteria. They are sharp. They're big thorns on this blackthorn as well. Gloves are essential. Lynn says, I'll send you instructions for sloe olives. Very easy. Interesting. Please do. I'll give that a go. And Ian says, Digwat had a hawthorn give me a foot years ago. My foot came up like a balloon. Blackthorn is worse, I will admit. It is nasty. It is nasty. But that's why it's called blackthorn. The clue's in the name. Super happy alien. I got to cut back a huge lot of hawthorn. Yeah, it's that time of year. It's that time of year. But make sure you pick. Well, actually, is it that time of year? What if birds are nesting in it? It could be. Could be. Just check. Just check before you do. Ian says, I should not be watching this. It's making me hungry. I mean, I like piccalilli. That's going to take a couple of months, just in time for Christmas, for that to really ferment together. Ah, yummy, yummy, yummy. Nice chunk of sharp cheddar cheese and pickled onions too. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it, when this all comes together? I love piccalilli. I really do love piccalilli. I think it's one that takes a while to perfect the great recipes, but once you get it right, it is worth it, and it's far, far better than anything we could grow at home or buy from a shop. Sorry. in my opinion, when we make it ourselves. When we use homegrown vegetables as well. And I love using my homegrown vegetables. So it is now time for the rant of the week. I've just realised I forgot to do all my musical intros for all of these segments, but I have got a rant of the week, and we will have what's made us happy as well. But my rant of the week is probably one that I've probably ranted about before. It annoys me a lot. Going into a garden centre. In fact, my wife sent me pictures of it. She was trying to wind me up that much. She went into a garden centre, and there was the Christmas decorations taking over most of the garden centre. I don't go into a garden centre at this time of year for that very reason. Well, I want to say what is going on. I know what is going on. Most garden centres need to bring in these Christmas decorations at this time of year so they can employ their staff, but it really annoys me for some reason. Yes, I am the Grinch. I am Mr. Bar Humbug. I do not like Christmas. Well, that's not strictly true. I don't like all the crap that goes with Christmas, and this is one of those things. Garden centres are taken over with Christmas, cheap tack, things like that are going on in there. So that is my rant. What is your rant? What is your rant of the week? Over on Instagram, Jamie's little allotment has joined and says, evening, good evening to you. Hope you are well. What were we? Turbo Stream says, piccalilli, that's going to stick now. I always think of it. I'll think of my dad when saying that when he got the piccalilli out. Piccalilli. Yeah, it's going to stick. It's going to stick. Ban Xmas here too. Yeah. I can't. I am Mr. Bar Humbug when it comes to Christmas. I do not like it. We've got Halloween first. We've got fireworks night. We've got, I don't know if we've got. I think that's all the celebrations that I would be part of. But then again, I'm not exactly. I'm not exactly what you would call religious in the nicest possible. I respect religion, but I wouldn't say I'm religious. Joanna Castells says, I hope I pronounced your name correctly there. So inspired, going to try making piccalilli and add runner beans. Give it a go. It's well worth it, especially if you've got lots of courgettes or anything like that. I was surprised just how much we could use. Digwell says, my rant of the week is ranting about people ranting about Christmas stuff in garden centres. Oh, I'm going to rant about people ranting about my ranting about Christmas gardens then, just to carry that on. Jamie's little allotment over on Instagram says, just pick carrots, parsnips and Cavallero Nero by torchlight for dinner. Yeah, can't beat it, can you? Cannot beat harvesting those goodies by torchlight for dinner. Carrots, parsnips. I've got some lovely carrots this week, I have to say. Ian says, I've had a few rants and me this week. Did I take any note? No, you are right. The garden centre are full of Xmas tat. I hate it. I hate it already. Turbo Stream says, a Christmas rant is only October, man. Come on. That's my point. That is my point. It is only October and there's this Christmas decoration already there. Kevin Kelly says, this is a bit off topic, but how do I grow horseradish? So I actually find horseradish growing on my allotment naturally. It's quite easy to grow because it's quite a thuggish plant. You just need a little bit of root that if you could try growing it from a bit of horseradish you buy at a greengrocer, for example. Just a little bit of root, plant it in the ground and it should go. It's that easy. It does prefer damper soil. It's a long tap root. It is a bit of a weed as well. It will come back year after year after year, and it is quite a big plant. But if anybody else has any tips on how to grow horseradish, let us know, because I'm lucky it just appears on my allotment. Digwell says, if you use runner beans, make sure you cook them fully to remove the lectin toxin. Oh, didn't hear that one. That's a new one on me, but what was I going to say? Health and safety noted. I've never heard that one. So, I mean, what else? You could probably add carrots to this recipe as well. Or lots of things you could add. I think the key ingredient, really, apart from the sauce, is cauliflower. Bunny Cillian says, to be fair, my garden centre is set up for Halloween. I've got no problem with it being set up for Halloween. Got no problem with that because Halloween is, what, a few weeks away? I'm going to cough in a minute. So I don't have a problem with that. But it's the fact that Christmas is still, well, we've got to go through Halloween, we've got to go through fireworks, then Christmas can come out in my eyes. Ian says, back in the early 80s, my boss bought just one small table of Christmas decorations. They sold out in 1 week. Crazy. Now they are full of the stuff. It is, isn't it? Isn't it? Jamie's Little Allotment says, I eat loads of runners straight from the wigwam. Yeah. Tasty, aren't they? Absolutely tasty. Super Happy Alien, horseradish will take over. It can be quite thuggish if you let it. It can be quite thuggish. Or Chili Phil says, make sure you grow horseradish in a pot, otherwise you will never get rid of it, which is, again, very, very true. It is very, very thuggish. Like I said, it pops up all over my allotment on its own, and it's hard to get rid of. Nicholas says, could grow in a barrow, could then have drainage holes on the side and stop it spreading. It could do, a bit like mint, it could do with going in a pot that sort of restricts its growth, keeps it in place, and so on. Digwell says, raw runners are bad for you, but partially cooked ones are worse. Do a search for Romsey school children runner bean poisoning. Never heard of it, but it's probably why I don't like runner beans then, or I'm not a keen lover of runner beans. I used green beans, French beans. Linus says, garden centre today set up for autumn, a brown sparkly true with decks in e.g. glittery mushrooms. I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with it being set up for autumn. It is autumn after all. I just don't like it's Christmas so early. It just feels like it's adding more pressure to people who find Christmas an incredibly hard time anyway. My thoughts. Jenny says, I hate fireworks. I'm with you. I hate fireworks too. And Joanna Piccalilli spelt correctly. Yeah, I always spell it wrong. Keep spelling ratatouille wrong as well. Fantastic, fantastic. Ian says, horseradish sounds like my Jerusalem artichokes. They have moved across the border. Yeah, they are quite thuggish. They could do with containing, but horseradish is delicious at the same time. I mean, if you think your eyes will cry when you cut onions, you try doing horseradish and you'll soon know just how bad it is. Horseradish will make your eyes cry even more than onions. I don't think fireworks should be sold to public. I kind of agree, but I don't want to live in a world where certain people can tell others what to do at the same time. But I kind of agree. I do kind of agree. Digwell says you could eat them every time you visit the plot, but it may get you if you eat one from somewhere else. Even the bags in Tesco ones have a warning on them. Cook before eating, do not eat raw. Well, you learn something new every day, don't you? Especially on this show, because I have never heard of this. But it makes sense. I mean, I remember reading about somebody who ate raw peas and the pea went down the wrong hole. He started having breathing troubles months afterwards, was going for x-rays. They were thinking it was lung cancer or something. And it turned out there was a pea lodged in his lung that had started to grow, and that was blocking his airway. So you shouldn't really eat uncooked food anyway. You should always cook your food properly to be safe. Nicholas says, I'd like to grow horseradish. Give it a go. Give it a go. Once you grow it, you always have it. Never see horseradish in a garden centre. I need to find a friend who has some and barter. So it is sometimes sold in the garden centre, normally beginning of spring, but it's normally sold in a bag. sort of thing, like what you get your onions or Jerusalem artichokes, those sort of things, like a throng, I think it's called, that you can buy from a garden centre to get started. Sometimes they actually sell it in pots in the herbs section, but it's very rare. I haven't seen it for a while. But yeah, go have a look in the garden centre. Have a chat with the manager if you are after some, and they might be able to get some in, especially for you. Jamie's little allotment. I've never heard of that, Digwell. So there you go. You've taught us something again. Jenny says, I couldn't agree more, Nicola. Terrible for wildlife, livestock, PTSD, ex-military, and why celebrate treason and death? I know, I'm kind of with you. Well, I am completely with you. I've had a rant about that before. But yeah. Digwell, I grew my horseradish from seed. Decent roots for the first year. Really? Really? I've never thought to grow it from seed, but I guess it must be possible. Well, everything's possible to grow from seed. So have a look for some horseradish seeds. Perhaps that's something we need to look at getting, some horseradish from seed. I'll have to see if I can find some seed. Super happy alien, got a fork and come to my allotment. Free horseradish for everyone. Yeah, it does. It is very invasive. It does grow all over the place. It's very invasive. Ian says, noted, I will cook my ice cream and jelly to be sure. Well, actually, it's probably been pre-cooked. Yeah. I'm going to say it's been pre-cooked. I mean, jelly's what's the word? Oh, I can't think of a word, but it's been pre-cooked. Nicholas says, that's good to know, Digwell. Where did you get the seeds from? That's exactly what I was wondering. Where did you get the seeds from? But I was also thinking it's probably readily available. Oh, crikey. Look at the time. Look at the time. Let's have a look at your photos, because it's always good to see your photos. First of all, I'm going to move this over to the big screen. A public service announcement from Kate, and she says to be safe on the roads today. Her car slid into the garden centre's parking lot yet again. Indeed, be safe, because you could end up in a garden centre, and it's full of Christmas decorations, as I've just said. Steve is also wondering how safe this garden is, because the sign says, please do not cycle in the gardens, but that you may injure a young child or elderly person. I wanted to know where this garden. Sorry, let me rephrase that. A friend of mine wanted to know where this garden is. Jenny is chopping and dropping. This is a mixture of tomatoes and a lot of other green waste that she's chopped and dropped and laid on top of the bed to rot down in place. Beddoes has a glut of tomatoes, as he is shown in this photo here. What's he going to do with all those tomatoes? Charlotte has made this upside down pear cake, which was a Jamie Oliver recipe, which looks absolutely delicious. And I don't know about you, but I've got a real glut of pears this year. So I'm certainly looking for it at the moment, or certainly looking for ways to use up pears. And Kate, she started a thread in our Facebook group asking you to share your chutney recipes based off back of last week's. This is chili cake, by the way. Last week's discussion. So please do go check out our Facebook group anyway, because we'd love to have you there, and always good to get some conversation and share what you're doing in the garden, in the allotment, or your photos or anything like that in there. Now, please do keep sharing your photos, post in our Facebook group, send to me via social media, or email me, richard@adventuregroundpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@adventuregroundpodcast.co.uk. Love to see your photos, as always. Thank you so much to everybody that has sent in photos. Now, I'm still asking. I don't think I've had a single mission or a single cook along yet. We've got 5 minutes left of this show, so we need to get some of those in. Hashtag mission, hashtag cook along. What has made me happy this week? Well, I went into my greenhouse earlier today, actually, I was in there with the camera, taking a few photos, seeing what I could harvest. And what I saw in there was a collection of habanero chili peppers that are looking absolutely plump and gorgeous and nice size, look like they're going to be spicy. Well, they're ready for picking. They are ready for picking. I haven't picked them as of yet because I'm trying to figure out what I could do with habanero chili peppers. It could be a cook along there, could be a cook along. So that has made me really happy this week. It made me feel very, very proud. What about you? What has made you happy this week in your allotment, in your garden? Let us know in the chat. So what have we got? The comments are all coming in. Joanna says, I'm on my way. To whoever was offering the horseradish. Thumbs up. Oh yeah, please do give us a thumbs up, a like, a follow, a subscribe, and don't forget to click the notifications so that you know when we go live. I say that every week because if I don't say it, YouTube and Facebook tells me off. Jenny says, well done, Nicola. I was just typing the same. Digwell says the name of the museum is on it. Yeah, I was meant it as a joke, but York Museum, I think it was. If you want to go and beat some young children or elderly, apparently that's the place. It's perfectly legal, but no cycling. Digwell says horseradish seeds from a friend's plant that flowered. There we go. There we go. Find a friend who has horseradish that is flowering. Jenny says great photos, everyone. Jamie's asking, is Digwell on Instagram? He is. I can't think what his Instagram channel is. I think it's digwell.greenfingers or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Chili Phil says hashtag cook along, chocolate and beetroot brownies. Excellent. As one. And Chili Kate, hashtag recipe. It needs to be hashtag cook along, I'm afraid. Otherwise the system doesn't find it. Something with pumpkin. So hashtag cook along. Just remember what your suggestion is. We'll do that in about 1 minute. Digwell says, I made habanero sweet chili sauce today. That could be something we do with our habaneros. Hashtag cook along. Something there we go. Got in there as a quick. Super happy alien. This year I've given off more veggies away than taken home. That is something to be proud of indeed. So to be very proud of. Nicholas has seen my only veg grown late in the season due to new beds, beetroot grown this year, nice and large. That's made Nicola happy. Rob says, been a very interesting live again. Thank you very much. Ian says, great show tonight. Thanks, Richard and all. Thank you very much for joining us. I know it's nearly the end. Andrew says, thanks for a lovely show, Richard. Good to spend this time with you. Much enjoyed. Digwell.cookwell.snapwell. Jamie, digwell.cookwell.snapwell is his Insta handle. Jenny says, if anyone has a bee hotel, now is a great time to pop it on the shed till March to keep it safe from frost. Pop it on the shed till March, keep it safe from frost and woodpeckers. On or in the shelf. So I still need a mission, but we have got what have we got? Well, I have got some. But let's do the share screen. Let's do we've got 2 entries for the cook along. Let's see who wins. It's between the 2 chilies, Chili Phil, Chili Kate. Who is gonna win? Chili Phil with his beetroot and chocolate brownies. And right at the end, I've just seen Gary has came in with a mission to source some horseradish seeds. So Jenny, if you could be good enough to write that down, both of those. That was the beetroot and chocolate brownies, and the other thing as the mission, source some horseradish seeds. Ido says, I made a Apricot habanero jam made with dehydrated apricots and fresh habaneros. Yummy. Excellent. Nicholas says, I've been offered black Cornish bees for my hive, so may have honey next year. I so want honeybees. I just cannot have I just can't have a beehive anywhere here at home or on the allotment to make it work, to make it possible. This is why I want a field so I can have honeybees. Anyway, there's another conversation for another time. Next week, I want to talk about if you were to start your allotment, your kitchen garden from scratch right now, what would you do different? What changes would you make if you were to start your allotment or your kitchen garden right now from scratch? What changes would you make? So that's going to be what we're going to discuss next week. I think that just about covers anything. It's 7:30. It's gone past 7:30 because the chat has been going on for so long. We will be back again next week at 6, where we will do it all over again. So until then, have some good fun. Don't forget to share your photos or your videos from your garden, your allotment. Send them in to us, post them in our Facebook group, etc., etc. We love seeing them. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. See you all next time.